Good morning. It's WKRK Radio in Murphy, North Carolina. Let me figure out how to get this screen back to normal. There we go. Now you can see Sheriff Derek Palmer's face instead of the logo saying, please stand by. All right, Tim Radford here along with Sheriff Derek Palmer of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. Good morning, Sheriff. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
I'm looking at the TV channel and seeing some 60-degree highs today, and that kind of tickles me.
Hey, that's why I wore my short-sleeve shirt today.
It's the short-sleeve shirt day,
right.
Yes.
It's warming up.
We've had quite a bit of chilly weather, not quite as bad as the Midwest. They had some wind chills, I think, around -50, and it was dangerous to go outside. And I noticed one news channel was telling people for their own safety when they're outside not to talk.
Right. Letting the heat out.
That is amazing. I've never seen it that cold. I know when I was growing up, we had a lot more cold weather back then. It seems like
we did. I was sharing with somebody the other day. I mean, it wasn't every year, but I can remember a lot of years when I was growing up it snowing at Halloween. You know, and always through November, Thanksgiving is kind of when you got your first snows, and Christmas. December was always cold, and then it really turned off blustery cold in January, February, but it started warming up at the end of February, March. It's kind of like things have kind of shifted just a little bit.
I remember going out and someplace on Owl Creek, we were just riding around in Dad's Jeep, and we got out and measured around 26 inches of snow.
Right.
I was so excited as a kid. I loved snow as a kid. And I remember it was right after Christmas one year, our water pump, our pump house had frozen up. So Dad and I were out there working. I was the official flashlight holder. And I never did that right. Apparently, because I don't know how to hold a flashlight right. But it was around -8 degrees. I was thinking we're out here at 8 degrees below zero working on this. But we haven't seen temperatures like that in a while.
I was the other thing that I was getting ready to say is I remember as a child, I don't remember how old I was. I was very young, but I can remember, you know, it stayed below zero for several weeks. I think it was like a week or a week and a half or something that stayed below zero. And, you know, that was not a common thing, but I remember those times growing up. But it seemed like it's been years and years since we've been that cold.
Yeah, and here we are at I think we saw around 10 degrees this past week, and that was extremely cold. So I remember when I was a kid, I used to love to get out and play in the snow. And
right.
I don't remember being cold when I did that. Maybe it was just the adrenaline as a kid.
It may have been. I don't know.
Or the fact that my mom had me dressed in 18 layers of clothes.
That might have had something to do with it. There's too many layers to get cold.
Have we had any problems locally as far as people having issues because of the cold?
Not that I've heard. I know that they have opened the cold weather shelters, you know, during the cold temperatures, and I've not heard a report of how many people utilized them or didn't utilize them. But, of course, we're always on the lookout, you know, for homelessness and people that's out on the streets during the cold weather. And I don't think as far as law enforcement we've had any issues or problems with it, but that might be a Robin Caldwell question you might want to ask her.
I know on these cold nights, like you mentioned, that Code Purple and getting people to safe areas, is there a capacity limit there? And how are, say, the homeless, how are they notified? I know we announced it on the radio here for folks, but those people that are homeless may not have a radio, or maybe someone goes up and asks them for help.
Yeah, typically what happens is just as you encounter them on the street or wherever it may be, just kind of put the word out of what's going on, where shelters are and things of that nature. We kind of try to do that even before the cold weather gets here, so they know that when it does get cold, they have somewhere to go. And, you know, like I say, there's a lot of churches, a lot of places around that really helps the homeless, feeds, and things of that nature. I know Andrews at their First Baptist up there, they do where they feed the homeless and stuff. And so those are good places where the word to get out to tell people where to go and where to be in cold weather.
All right. Yeah. And that is one thing that I'm really interested into, finding out what a lot of the churches are doing. We know that, you know, churches preach, they sing and things like that, and they have their service times. But if there are churches out there that are reaching outside those walls, doing things for their community, tell us about it here, WKRK, because we want to promote those kind of things. Because as we've mentioned before, the church isn't just inside the building.
Right.
The churches that are getting out and actually helping the community out, we want to know about those things so we can help promote those things.
Yeah.
And we just find it incredible that there are loving people out there that are concerned about their neighbor and just wanting to do good.
Right. One of the things we tend to forget a lot is that when you talk about churches, the actual church is not the building; it's the people that's inside the church. That is the church. And so, If we're to a place where we're coming in on just Sunday mornings and worshiping for an hour on Sunday morning, and that's all we do during the week, then I don't think we're fulfilling our obligation, our duties. I think it's Matthew 28 that told us to go out, teach, preach, baptize, do all those things, go out and do that. Nowhere do I read in the Bible that it says to sit on a pew on Sunday and wait for them to come to you. It tells you to go out and work where they're at, and go to the highways and hedges, compel them to come. And so I do want to admire the churches that are out doing that are out working in their communities and feeding the hungry and clothing those who are not clothed and doing all those things that needs to be done up there.
You never know what it means to someone who is in need just to be shown love and kindness, showing that someone cares about them.
Right.
And that could just, honestly, one moment like that can change your entire life and the way they view the world.
It can. And, one of the things that we always try to remember as far as our churches and church people, to remind them, our pastor even talked about it, I think last Sunday morning, he talked about it, was the fact of that, when their bellies are growling and they're hungry, that may not be the time to try to preach to them. That may not be the time to try to minister to them as far as their spirituality. You need to take care of their physical needs and what the physical needs are going on. And as you're taking care of those physical needs, then you can address the spiritual issues and the things that go along with that. But if we're not willing to get our hands dirty and address the physical needs, then a lot of times we're spinning our wheels and wasting our time on trying to minister to somebody on their spiritual needs.
Right. All right. Well, the sheriff's office, what else is going on in the sheriff's office now? I know some breaking and entering, some cases are being worked on actively.
Yeah. They our investigative unit has been doing an outstanding job solving crime and finding people breaking into houses, recovering property. And I think last week we had an incident where, I don't remember the monetary amount, but a person up in the Andrews area, no, I take that back, they were actually in the Murphy area, they got their house broken into and a lot of jewelry stolen, a lot of personal property and things stolen. We weren't able to recover everything, but we got a lot of it back. We got a lot of their jewelry back and made some arrests out of it and those type of things. And one of the things we kind of changed in our investigative division is that Lieutenant Wood has actually put out a second shift, basically, of investigators. Instead of everybody working during the daytime hours, he has on-call investigators for the night. And the first part of that night, they are out working a second shift. And so they're out and about. They're out with the deputies, out helping some of the breaking and enters that occurred, solving some of the things even after hours, after everybody else goes home and has supper. So it's working very well. They're recovering a lot of property and doing a good job out there. And I just want to commend them for the hard work they're doing.
And I was talking to Joe Wood last night, Lieutenant Wood, and he did a good job with a presentation last night, talking and just letting the people in the room know what all is going on with investigations. And it's not always as easy as people think. And I think we've mentioned before, it's not like you see on a 30-minute or an hour-long TV show.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it takes so long to process evidence. Even nowadays, even we have that crime lab now. Is it Eddyville? Mm-hmm. But he was talking about some evidence it would take when it was going to Raleigh for a year or so before results. So you kind of had to pick and choose what you actually sent to them for fingerprinting and DNA testing.
Yeah, a lot of our fingerprinting we can do in-house. We have an in-house database that we can compare prints to that runs through our local confinement. So we always try to do that first to see if it's somebody that we've arrested here in Cherokee County, that may have prints on file. When we don't get matches there, we try to send that stuff off to Eddyville or other places to get the fingerprint matches done through the state database and through the federal database if possible, to get a match there. And that can take a while. When you think about it, you think about all the police departments and sheriff's offices in the state that are submitting things to the labs to have checked, and it takes time for those people working in the labs to process all that and to go through all that stuff that's coming to them every day.
There is quite a backlog, isn't there?
There always has been. And I know they made some great changes, some great strides with the SBI as far as streamlining those things and getting those things more productive. It's way better than it used to be. We're getting things through a whole lot quicker now than we used to, but it still takes several months, to get stuff through a lot of times.
And if I were a victim in a case like that, back in the days when it took over a year,
Right.
Does the victim care as much at that point, or do they kind of give up at some point?
Sometimes they give up. Some people follow it through all the way to the end, even if it takes a year or sometimes 2 years to get something prosecuted or through. Some people are right there every court date and see it through to the end. But there are others, the majority of the people, somewhere along the way may lose heart and just give up, at some point where, insurance pays off and they get their money back through insurance and they've started their life over again and they're going, and it's been a year since that incident happened and they've got everything replaced and going. Sometimes people just kind of lose interest in it after that. And that's kind of what's disheartening a lot of times, because what we see is the same people breaking into houses and stealing things and that repeating cycle. And when it takes it a year or so to get through a process, 18 months, to get through the court system and to get through the process.
Look how much new damage can be done.
And victims lose heart and don't want to prosecute anymore and those type of things. Then these same people are basically turned loose. Their cases are dismissed, turned back on the street, and they're committing the same crimes over and over again because they know of the backlogs and they know the things that are happening and know that it's very slim, that if they plead not guilty and want a trial, it's very slim that they'll get one before a year or two.
And another issue that I have, and I've mentioned this on the show before, but I keep seeing more and more situations of this happening, is the excessive number of continuances a case can have.
Right.
And I know the defense side
Right.
uses that as a game, as the longer this plays out, the more my chances are of winning the case, but it's not really fair to the victims who are showing up for every court case just to say, oh, this is being continued, because after about 10, are you going to show up for the 11th?
Well, what's happened and what we see in the court system a lot is, and it happens with officers too, we'll take it out of the victim's hands, put it in the officer's hands for a minute, but you have a court case that keeps getting continued and continued and continued. This is the 7th or 8th time it's been continued. And you have an officer that's sick or on vacation or had worked the night before and has been on a 12 or 14-hour shift and doesn't come to court or can't make it to court that morning for whatever reason. Even though it's been continued 10 times, now you see a dismissal because of failure for the officer to show up for court or failure for the victim to show up or prosecuting witness. And that's what's disheartening a lot of times too, is that you see that game being played within the system where defendants continue, and then the one time an officer has an issue or the victim has an issue and can't come to court, it's dismissed.
And I do remember back when I was in college, I got quite a few speeding tickets, had a little red Mercury Capri that had turbo in it, and I was driving from Chapel Hill to Murphy, and I did not honor the speed limit the way I should have. So I got quite a few speeding tickets back then, and I remember that I went to an attorney to represent me in court one time, and he says, okay, the first thing we need to do is just do a continuance, because the chances for that state trooper to show up, he's going to show up on your first court date, but if it's going to move to another date, he's probably not going to show up, and then we could get thrown out. And I thought, that doesn't seem fair. And it really isn't.
It really
fair,
isn't, but it happens.
But it happens. People know the game. They know how to play. They know how to win. So I would love to see some kind of fairness, some kind of, I guess, I don't know what I'm saying here, but
I think what you're saying, and the way I feel about it is, I wish there was a limit on continuances. Like 3 continuances is all you get. Then after the third one, you're going to try it. Something's going to happen with it.
I think what I'm trying to say is it should not be that easy to manipulate the process. And it is being manipulated every day.
And the other way to manipulate the process we see a lot too is from the criminal world, is they understand also that if you go out in January and you commit a crime and you've got a court date for March, and that's set for March, and then in February, if you commit another crime in February, you can get caught. Then it's added to that March calendar. Well, since it's a new crime, they'll continue it from March to maybe April or May. And then if you commit another crime between then, it's continued again down the road. They keep adding the crimes to your court dates. And so these people out here in the criminal world understand that that's going to keep getting continued to now it's a year later, and the original crime has not been to court yet. They've just been keep adding crimes to it. And now it's a year later, and you've got 8 or 10 or 15 crimes attached to that from that original crime. And now they're into plea negotiations where we need to get this off the calendar, and so it comes down to playing down to a single charge or dismissing half of those other crimes, so they understand that I may get convicted of the original crime I did, but this is a good opportunity for me to commit 15 more crimes that I'm not going to get convicted of. And so
it's a way to procrastinate.
Right, it is. And so it is a game. It's a game all the way around, with the defense attorneys and with the criminal element that's out there. And they know how to play the game very well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, one of the things I was mentioning, Lieutenant Wood, last night, you've had a class going on for several months now.
Right.
It's called the Citizens
Law Enforcement Academy.
Right. And let's just talk about that some, because we may have people interested in being a part of your next.
Right.
I think this is the biggest class you've had so
It
far
is the
since you've
biggest
been.
class. It's the biggest class we've had.
It's an interesting concept. It basically is a bunch of folks that are concerned about the law enforcement, that care about the officers, they care about the crime, and they care about their neighbors, and they just want to learn more and see if there's ways that the citizens can just be an asset to the community.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what it's all about. It's kind of bridging that gap between the community and law enforcement, and getting them to understand, helping them understand, I guess I should put it that way, helping them understand what law enforcement goes through. And just like you talked about with investigating the crimes, about why it's not so easy to just, somebody broke in my house, arrest them, put them in jail, and then convict them next week and they go to prison. Right. It's a teaching tool for the citizens to understand how the process works, what we go through out there. And so it's one of those things that we just want to try to bridge that gap and partner with our communities. The other thing with that Citizens Law Enforcement Academy is not just understanding what we're doing, but also looking for opportunities and places that citizens can assist with us, right? So if you have people who maybe have military law enforcement background and they don't want to go to basic law enforcement training, and they don't want to put 6 or 8 months of their life through that, or they may be like me and getting older in life and they don't want to go through all the things you have to go through to become a certified law enforcement officer, it gives an opportunity to go through this class, and some of these retired folks or some of these people in military or law enforcement experience to just help out. And we're looking at things after this class is over with about maybe working with investigations, for example, of when we have neighborhoods where a lot of breaking and enterings occur, things of that nature. Maybe using our citizen volunteers to go out and just talk with people, just knock on doors and interview people and ask them if there's anything they saw, any strange vehicles in the area, what may be going on in their neighborhood. And that frees our investigators and it frees our patrol officers up to do the law enforcement duties that are out there. And it helps be able to have someone else do these mundane tasks that can gather the information for the investigators and put all that together. So we're just looking at it's an experiment. A lot of people around the state are doing it, and even North Georgia, I know several people down there doing it. I think Towns County does one. And so it's just looking at what everybody else is doing and seeing how we can utilize that to better our sheriff's office.
And there's a lot of people out there that just they have some free time, and they do love their community, and they respect law enforcement, and they just want to volunteer their time and their services. And there's a lot of stuff. I realize that you guys have tons of paperwork to do.
Right.
So if you have a situation of like stapling certified letters to, like, I know you have to do, we did this the other night with Roger, stapling those green things from the post office to the case files and things like that for sex offenders. So is a detective's time better used researching and taking care of the case, or sitting there doing paperwork, stapling paperwork together? So there's a lot of things that people can do just to assist with all that paperwork nightmare, so that you guys can actually get out and do the jobs that you are trained for.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've been talking about recently is about the animal control, and those type of things, animal services division and all that. And that's one of the things that keeps coming up in that, is that even though all these things are important and things that we need to be doing, we look at our animal call complaints that come in, and the vast majority of them are things like stray animals, or things like animals walking through my yard off a leash, they're digging up my flowers, barking all night, those kind of calls we get. And so even though they're important to people. As we're trying to put this thing together, we're trying to figure out, is that something that you really want to pay a detective, $40,000 or $50,000 a year to go around to all these barking dog calls, or is this something that you want to use citizens that can weed through some of these things and go out and talk to people and find out what the situations are, and divvy those things up about what needs to go to the health department, what needs to go to law enforcement, what needs to go to the Humane Society, and how some non-certified person trying to figure out where these things need to go. And so I agree with you on the fact of that it is important. It's all these are things that we have to do as part of the law enforcement job. But when you have certified law enforcement folks out there, I think most people want them out there solving crime and working on the bad things that's happening in our communities, and not necessarily spending 3 hours in an office stapling papers together.
Right.
You know?
And
so,
yeah, just from my experiences there, you have way more paperwork than I have here.
right.
And I have plenty here. So,
Yeah. It's a lot.
but
It's
yeah,
a
you
lot.
have this huge paper trail, and you have to have that paper trail, and all the I's have to be dotted, the T's have to be crossed, because if there's something wrong with that paperwork, someone who is guilty of a crime could get out on a technicality.
Yeah.
Just because the paperwork's not filled out properly.
It is, and people I don't think can imagine the amount of paperwork, especially on a felony case that goes up to the district attorney's office. And the first thing that happens is when those felony packets go up to the district attorney's office on a crime, is when the defense attorney gets it. That's the first thing they do is they go through and look for mistakes. They look for things that may have been done wrong, errors in the reports, things of that nature. So that's one of the very first things defense attorneys do. So it takes a lot of time to put those things together and put them correctly. And from time to time, mistakes are made. You know, we're not perfect. We do make mistakes from time to time, and sometimes that may result in something bad that we don't want to happen as far as somebody walking away or being free. So, you know, but it is what it is. And I think even though our judicial system and our law enforcement system and our system in general is not perfect, I think it's the best thing we got going right now. So,
All right. Let's see. What is the role of an assistant district attorney? We have one position here in Cherokee County, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And we
Actually, we have two, I think, here, one for Superior Court and one for District Court.
Okay. What are they here for?
Well, when you think about it, is just like I'm elected sheriff, and I have deputy sheriffs that are out doing the job and working, you know, doing patrol efforts, investigations, things of that nature. Assistant district attorneys are the same thing. You have an elected district attorney, and then the elected district attorney has assistants that go out and help them do their work, do the work for them, you know. So obviously one elected person can't be in all 7 counties at the same time doing court and going through all the cases. So they have these assistant district attorneys going through these cases and prosecuting cases on their behalf. And so all the counties have assigned assistant district attorneys that go through those cases, that prosecute cases and things of that nature. So basically it's like an extension of the district attorney is all that is.
Are the two that we have assigned just to our county?
Yes. We have one assigned for Superior Court, and we have one assigned for District Court. And so they work our county, Cherokee County.
And who are they?
You got you had to ask me, Kimberly Harris.
Kimberly, yes.
They've switched recently is the reason I had to stumble a minute. You had Kimberly Harris that is doing our Superior Court, and then you have Vicki Teams that's doing our District Court here in Cherokee County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. At one point, we had someone. Was it John Heinzman?
You're right. John got promoted up to the second in charge in the district attorney's office, and so his office is not in Cherokee County anymore. He's working directly with the district attorney now.
Is their office in the courthouse?
The district attorneys.
The assistant. Yeah.
Yeah, they're upstairs. When you go up the stairs, they're on the top floor of the courthouse.
Okay. Now, see, I'm learning things.
Yeah.
And. Yeah, Lieutenant Wood and I were talking last night. There's a big case coming up for trial too, and I'm going to try my best to be. I want to just be part of the audience there.
Right.
I've never actually sat through and watched a court case go through
Right.
from beginning to end.
We've got a murder trial coming up next week, and it's they're expecting it to probably take close to 2 weeks to do. So it's going to be a big trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know I can't clear my schedule up
Right.
for 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be a part of that and just to
Right.
see that process happen, because I know it's a fascinating process and we don't always agree with the process
Right.
or the outcome. And how are jurors selected and things like that?
Well, what happens is, and like I say, it's open to the public. Anybody can come watch these trials. The only ones that's closed to the public is if it has to do with juveniles and juvenile testimony and those type of things, then they may clear a courtroom for that. But trials are public. Anybody can come sit and watch one. And what happens is they have a jury pool. Previous to Superior Court happening, the clerk's office sends out notifications. Actually, it comes through the sheriff's office, but the clerk's office sends a list of names that's sent out through the sheriff's office to summon people to jury duty. When they get to jury duty notice, they have a pool of people that probably somewhere, I'm guessing, I hadn't talked to Roger Gibbs and see what the actual number on this one was, but I'm guessing somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 people or so will come out for jury duty Monday morning. There'll be a pool of people, and what will happen is as they get ready to start the trial, the clerk's office will randomly pull names out of a box, and then people will take seats in the jury box, and it gives an opportunity for the prosecutor and the defense attorney to question those jurors as to make a determination whether they can be fair and impartial in the case. And they can dismiss people, they can ask others to come up, whatever it may be. But when the district attorney, or when the district attorney's office and when the defense attorney is satisfied that the people that seated in the jury box will be fair and impartial, then the trial can proceed at that point.
Some people love being on jury duty. Some people find every excuse not to do it.
Right. Yeah.
But I realize that is an inconvenience to a lot of people because they're having to get out of work to do this. But it is a responsibility to make this process be smooth and fair.
Right. It is. It is.
So one of our civic duties.
Sure is.
All right. Well, let's see. I see our time is running out. Anything that you want to discuss before we close out today's show?
No, I just want to, this past year or so has been rough. It's been a rough year, and been a lot of things come up, and through the sheriff's office. And I really thought that after the election occurred and after we got back on our feet, that things would kind of smooth out a little bit. But there for several months, it got pretty rough, especially through the media and and those type of things. But one thing I do want to say is that I want to thank all the people out there that sends letters of encouragement, the people who send text messages and phone calls just to let me know they're praying for me, that they're on my side, and that they know that we're doing the best job we can do. And when you have a lot of people, especially when you have former employees and disgruntled employees that are out there that are trying to tear you down and put all this stuff out and call media and all these things to try to make the office look bad. I just want to say that I just want to thank the people that sees through all that, and I want to thank the people who gives us the encouragement that we need to keep going from day to day. And the thing about it is, I've thought about this a lot, and I've debated on it back and forth as to what I need to do for my future. But one of the things that has recently, as I've been praying and thinking about these things, I have known that that God has never called us to do easy tasks. He's never called us for to go in and just sit back with their feet propped up and everything be smooth. But anything that happens, anything that comes our way, any adversity that comes our way is an opportunity for us to show what we're made of. It's an opportunity for us to be the best person we can be, to give God glory, to edify Him and to build Him up. And so, with all these, even though bad things have happened recently and a lot of things have been said and a lot of rumor mills flying out there and a lot of things that's just flat out lies and flat out made up, I can really look back through this experience and say, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to show us that we need to do? And one of the things I think that God has really been impressing on me lately is just to show our steadfastness and just to show that we don't lose heart, that we don't lose faith, that we trust Him in all things and we trust Him on everything that we do. And so I just felt the need to say that this morning. I just felt the need to just thank everybody out there.
Well, very good. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. I know it's been a rough year because you've been in a lot of headlines,
right?
With
I celebrate
news.
Every Wednesday when my name's not in the headline of Cherokee Scout.
But there's those publications out there. Some of them are not even local to here, but they are focusing only on one part of. They're focusing on the problems. Right. But as a fair media outlet, we mentioned that here on our show too. We haven't covered anything up or anything like that, but there is so much more than just that one part that should be. There's so many good things that you're doing too. Right. Let's cover all of it. Right. Let's mention the mistakes that were made. Let's mention the things that you're doing. Let's mention the fact that the community is kind of working together and how we can move forward.
Right.
So I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to do this show and to talk about all the good things that the sheriff's office is doing and how improvements are being made so that nothing, the mistakes don't repeat themselves.
Well, I think one of the things, that me personally I get very, very frustrated on is that, we understand, and I'm the first to admit that we're not perfect, right? There's things that we wish we could do better, wish we could do different, wish that things hadn't have happened, wish that things had been different when they happened. And there's always mistakes that's been made and always things that are out there. But we try to take those mistakes and learn from them and do something better with that and create something better and change things to make life better and make the office better. But it seems like the good things that you do and the changes that you make and all those don't make headlines. It don't. People don't want to talk about those things. But I guarantee you, if you make a mistake out there, that'll make the headlines, and people will talk about it for days and weeks to come. But the thing about it is, I think it's very important that it's all the Christians that are listening out there. This is a Christian radio station, and a lot of Christians listen to this radio station. Is to understand that, as I said a while ago, that God never promised us things would be perfect. God never promised us things would be smooth. We all face adversity, and it's what you do with that adversity, how you deal with that adversity, how you move forward with that adversity is the important thing. And it's, even though I want the negativity to stop, even though I want the former employees and all those disgruntled people to leave us alone and let us do our job, I understand that may not be the case. They may be after me for the next 4 years and come out with everything they can come out with guns blazing. But I understand that God's called me to do a job, and he's called me to do a work. And as long as he wants me here, and as long as he's called me here, that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I claim that, and I know that God promised us that.
All right. Well, folks, just keep tuning into this show, and we're going to learn about the whole picture. We're going to be talking about the great things that you're doing, too, like the kids fishing rodeo that's coming up.
It's
and
coming
I believe
up
in May.
I believe it's in May that's coming up.
And, of course, we have the Veterans Appreciation every year. And, a lot of communities don't do things like that to connect with kids and the veterans, and there's the running with the law things, and there's so many just things that you're doing for the community that I think need to make headlines, not just the negative stuff. So, and I never want us to be labeled as a negative radio station. So, just keep coming back.
I just wish this media, especially newspaper outlets and blogs that are out there, I just wish they'd just quit printing rumors. Let's deal with the facts and go with the facts. Quit printing rumors. So I just, like I say, I just want to thank everybody for the encouragement. I want to thank everybody for the calls I get. And when I go out on the street, and I was at Walmart the other night and was walking down the aisle at Walmart, and I didn't even know this person. They said, "Hey, are you the sheriff?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Listen, don't worry about all that negative stuff that's out there and what these reporters, people are trying to say. Our community has got your back, and our community loves you, and wants you to know that we're praying for you and supporting you." And that means the world to me. I just want you to understand that.
All right. Well, Sheriff, thank you very much. We appreciate your being with us every Friday here on the radio and on Facebook Live, and we'll do it again same time, same place.
Thank you.
Next week right here on WKRK. 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide we're at country.am. Stay tuned. We have Pastor Odd Brown with the Little Brasstown Baptist Church coming up in just moments right here on the radio.